Christmas morning was supposed to be the happiest day of the year. Instead, I sat alone at a table set for 6, staring at 5 untouched plates, slowly growing cold. The turkey had just come out of the oven. The gifts were wrapped exactly the way my late husband used to like them. The fireplace crackled softly in the corner, and the Christmas tree sparkled with ornaments collected over 40 years of family memories. But the house was silent. One by one, my children had called with excuses. "We're spending Christmas with the in-laws. The kids are too tired to travel. We'll visit next week." Not one of them came. As I looked around the empty dining room, I realized something heartbreaking. They hadn't forgotten Christmas, they had forgotten me. I quietly packed the presents back into their boxes and wiped away my tears. Then I picked up my phone and made a single call that would change every one of our lives forever. By the time the next Christmas arrived, my children would be standing on my front porch, begging for another chance. But by then, my final gift had already been given. And it wasn't wrapped in Christmas paper. It was a decision they never saw coming, one that would expose the true meaning of family, gratitude, and love, and leave them with a lesson they would carry for the rest of their lives. Stay with me, because what happened after that lonely Christmas morning changed our family forever. The Christmas dinner was still warm when I carried it to the trash, not because it had gone bad, because no one came. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the table I had spent 3 days preparing. 5 gifts sat beneath the tree, each one labeled with the name of a child I had loved, sacrificed for, and raised with everything I had. The lights on the tree twinkled as if nothing was wrong, but the silence inside my home was louder than any Christmas song. One by one, my children had canceled. One blamed the weather, another said their grandchildren were busy. The youngest didn't even bother to call. I kept checking my phone, hoping someone would say, "Mom, we're on our way." That message never came. As I folded the untouched napkins and blew out the candles, I realized something that broke my heart. I had spent my entire life putting my children first. Yet when I needed them most, I wasn't even an afterthought. They believed I would forgive them, just as I always had. They believed there would always be another Christmas. My name is Margaret Ellis, and at 72 years old, I had learned to live with many kinds of silence. There was the silence that filled my home. After my husband, Robert, passed away 8 years earlier, there was the silence of drinking my morning coffee alone, of watching the evening news with no one to comment on it, and of walking through a house that still carried the echoes of a life we had built together. But there was one silence I never expected, the silence of my own children. Robert and I had raised 3 wonderful children, or at least that was what I believed. Emily, our oldest, had become a successful attorney. Michael owned a growing construction business. Sarah, the youngest, had moved across the country after getting married. We were proud of every one of them. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. Robert had spent 35 years as a high school teacher, and I had worked as a nurse before retiring. We saved carefully, paid off our home, and built a modest retirement fund. More important than money, we believed we had built a family that would always stay close. Every Sunday after church, our house was full. The grandchildren ran through the backyard laughing. Robert grilled hamburgers while I baked apple pie. The dining room table was crowded with stories, jokes, and conversations that stretched long after dessert. Those Sundays were my favorite memories. Even after Robert passed away, I tried to keep those traditions alive. For a while, everyone still came. Then life became busy. Emily's work demanded more of her time, Michael's business expanded, Sarah's family lived too far away. The weekly visits became monthly visits. Monthly visits turned into phone calls. Phone calls slowly became text messages. Eventually, even those grew shorter. "Sorry, Mom, busy this week, we'll come soon. Love you." I always answered the same way. "Take your time, sweetheart. I never wanted them to feel guilty. Instead, I quietly learned to celebrate birthdays alone. I attended church by myself. I ate dinner across from an empty chair that still belonged to Robert. Still. Every December, hope returned. Christmas had always brought our family back together. No matter how busy life became, Christmas was sacred, or at least it used to be. That year, I decorated the house exactly as Robert and I always had. I untangled the old lights, placed the angel on top of the tree, baked dozens of Christmas cookies, and wrapped every present by hand. I even bought each grandchild something special after spending weeks searching for the perfect gift. Neighbors smiled as they watched me carry groceries inside. "Looks like you're expecting a full house," one of them said. I smiled proudly. "The whole family will be here." At least, that's what I believed. 3 days before Christmas, Emily called. "Mom, I'm so sorry, but we're spending Christmas with David's parents this year." I forced a smile into my voice. "Of course, sweetheart. I understand." The next day, Michael called. "The kids have been sick. We'd better stay home." "I hope they feel better," I replied. On Christmas Eve, Sarah sent a text. "Flights were too expensive. Maybe after New Year's. Love you." I stared at the message for a long time. 3 children, 3 excuses, 1 empty house. Even then, I convinced myself someone might surprise me. So, early on Christmas morning, I put the turkey in the oven, set the table for 6, turned on Robert's favorite Christmas music, and waited. At exactly 11:17 a.m., my phone rang. For one brief moment, my heart filled with hope. I smiled, reached for the phone, and what I heard on the other end changed everything. My hands trembled as I answered the phone. "Mom, Merry Christmas!" Emily said, cheerfully. I forced a smile into my voice. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart. We just wanted to call before lunch." I looked at the dining room table. 6 plates were neatly arranged. The turkey had just come out of the oven. The candles were burning. "I was hoping you might still make it." There was an awkward silence. "Mom, we already told you. We're at David's parents' house." In the background, I could hear laughter, children opening presents, and Christmas music. A family celebration, just not mine. "We'll stop by next weekend," Emily added. Before I could answer, someone called her name. "I have to go. Love you." The call ended. A few minutes later, Michael sent a photo. His family stood around a beautifully decorated Christmas tree, all smiling. The caption read, "Best Christmas ever." There wasn't a single message asking how I was. Sarah sent a video later that afternoon. Her children were opening presents while everyone laughed around the fireplace. She never mentioned that I was spending Christmas alone. I quietly placed my phone face down. For the first time in my life, I realized something painful. My children hadn't been kept away by emergencies. They had made a choice, and I wasn't part of it. As evening approached, I packed away the untouched presents. Each gift carried a memory: the train set for my grandson who loved locomotives, the knitting kit for my granddaughter who wanted to learn like I once had, a framed family photograph for Emily, a vintage pocket watch for Michael that had belonged to his father. I carefully returned every gift to the closet. Just as I closed the door, someone knocked. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Henderson. "I noticed your lights were still on," she said softly. "Were you alone all day?" I nodded. Without saying another word, she hugged me. Sometimes strangers can offer more comfort than family. She invited me to spend the evening with her family. I thanked her but declined. After she left, I sat beside the fireplace, holding Robert's old wedding ring. "I miss you," I whispered. The next morning, I woke to dozens of social media posts from my children. Every one of them celebrated the importance of family. Feeling so blessed. Nothing is more important than spending Christmas with the people you love. Thousands of people clicked like. I couldn't. Later that week, while sorting through old paperwork, I found a folder Robert had labeled estate planning. Inside were copies of our wills, investment statements, property records, and a handwritten letter. The letter wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to our children. Robert had written it just months before he passed away. His final words spoke about kindness, gratitude, and never forgetting the parents who sacrificed everything for them. Tears filled my eyes as I finished reading. Then something else caught my attention. Attached to the folder was a recent financial statement. The value of our home and investments had increased far beyond what I realized. Our estate was now worth nearly $3 million. At that exact moment, my phone rang. It was Michael. His voice sounded unusually warm. "Mom, we were thinking maybe we should all come over this weekend." Before I could answer, he added one sentence that made my heart sink. "By the way, have you updated your will recently?" For the first time, I wasn't wondering why my children had suddenly become interested in visiting. I already knew. But what I didn't know was how they had found out about my estate and who had been telling them everything behind my back. I didn't answer Michael's question. Instead, I calmly replied, "Why don't all of you come over on Saturday? It's been a while since we've been together." His voice brightened immediately. "That's a great idea, Mom. We'll all be there." The excitement in his tone wasn't because he missed me. It was because he thought there was something to gain. After hanging up, I sat quietly with Robert's letter in my hands. For years, I had blamed myself for our family drifting apart. I told myself my children were busy building careers, raising families, and chasing dreams. But now I couldn't ignore what was right in front of me. They had found time for vacations. They had found time for holiday parties. They had found time for everyone else. Yet somehow, they couldn't find a few hours for their own mother on Christmas Day. Saturday arrived. For the first time in months, every one of my children walked through my front door. Emily brought flowers. Michael carried an expensive bottle of wine. Sarah hugged me longer than usual. Even the grandchildren seemed surprised to see everyone together. Something felt rehearsed. Everyone was unusually kind. They complimented the house. They offered to help with dinner. Michael even insisted on fixing a cabinet that had been broken for years. As we sat around the dining table, the conversation felt forced. No one mentioned Christmas. Finally, Emily cleared her throat. "Mom, we've been worried about you." "Worried? You've been living alone for a long time." Sarah quickly added, "Maybe it's becoming too much for you." I smiled politely. "I'm doing just fine." Michael leaned forward. "We've actually been discussing what's best for your future." "Our future?" I asked. "No, yours." He slid a folder across the table. "I think you should take a look." Inside were glossy brochures for luxury retirement communities. There was also paperwork authorizing the sale of my house. I looked up slowly. "You've already filled these out." Emily nodded. "We're only thinking about your safety." "My safety? This house is too big. You shouldn't be living alone." And, Michael added carefully, "if you sold the house now, the money could be invested wisely." I stared at my 3 children. Not one of them had asked what I wanted. They had already made the decision for me. I quietly folded the papers. "No." The room became silent. Emily tried to smile. "Mom, don't make this difficult." "I'm not. You deserve professional care. I deserve to make my own choices." Michael's patience disappeared. "You're being stubborn." I looked directly into his eyes. "No, I'm being independent." The dinner ended awkwardly. One by one, they left. As Sarah hugged me goodbye, she whispered, "Please think about it." "I will," I replied. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something about the entire conversation felt wrong. It wasn't just concern. It was coordination. The next Monday, I met with Robert's longtime attorney, James Porter. He reviewed everything that had happened. When I finished, he became unusually quiet. "There may be something you don't know." "What is it?" He opened a file from his cabinet. "Several months ago, all 3 of your children came to see me together." My heart skipped. They did? Yes. What did they want? They asked if your estate plan could be changed without your knowledge. I felt the room spinning. What did you tell them? I refused. He handed me a copy of his notes from that meeting. There, in black and white, was a sentence that shattered what remained of my heart. Our mother doesn't really need all that money anymore. We'd rather settle everything while she's still alive. I couldn't speak. Robert had spent his entire life teaching our children that family came before money. Now money had come before family. As I wiped away my tears, Mr. Porter placed another document on the desk. I've been waiting to show you this. What is it? It's a letter your husband left with me. He instructed me to give it to you only if he ever believed your children had forgotten what truly mattered. My hands trembled as I reached for the sealed envelope. Written across the front, in Robert's familiar handwriting, were 6 words that stopped me cold. When they show you who they are. I held Robert's letter for several minutes before I found the strength to open it. His handwriting was as steady and familiar as I remembered. My dearest Margaret, if James is giving you this letter, it means something has gone terribly wrong. It means our children have allowed money to become more important than love. If that day ever comes, don't punish them with anger. Let the truth become their greatest teacher. Tears blurred the ink. Robert had never doubted our children, but he had understood human nature. He knew that grief, success, and money could change people in ways no parent ever wanted to imagine. At the bottom of the letter was one final instruction. Do not make any decisions until you know everyone's true intentions. That sentence changed everything. For weeks, I had been reacting to my children's actions. Now, I decided to watch. I called each of them separately and invited them to dinner the following weekend. This time, I mentioned something I had never discussed before. I've been thinking about updating my estate plan. The response was immediate. Emily canceled 2 business meetings to attend. Michael offered to drive 3 hours just to help. Sarah suddenly found inexpensive flights after saying for months that traveling was impossible. They all arrived early. They all brought gifts. They all acted like the perfect children, but something felt different. Not because they had changed, because I finally saw through the performance. Throughout dinner, they asked careful questions. Mom, have you spoken with your attorney? Are you keeping the house? Do you know who'll handle everything someday? Every conversation quietly returned to one subject: money, not memories, not family, money. After dessert, I smiled. I have something I'd like to share. 3 pairs of eyes lit up. I've decided to make changes to my will. No one spoke. I'll be meeting with my attorney on Monday. Michael couldn't hide his excitement. I think that's a smart decision. Emily nodded. We're only thinking about what's best for you. I know, I replied calmly. Then I said something that changed the room. I've decided to donate most of my estate. The silence was immediate. Emily's smile disappeared. Michael nearly dropped his coffee cup. Sarah stared at me in disbelief. Donate it? Michael finally asked. Yes. To who? Children's hospitals, nursing homes, and scholarships for students whose families can't afford college. No, Michael said quickly. I mean, surely you don't mean all of it. I've spent months thinking about it. Emily leaned forward. Mom, you don't have to make a decision like that. I already have. For the first time that evening, the masks began to fall. Michael stood. This is ridiculous. Sarah's voice became sharp. What about your own family? I answered quietly. I've been asking myself that same question since Christmas. The room froze. No one had an answer. Just then, there was another knock at the front door. It was James Porter. He walked inside carrying a leather briefcase. I hope I'm not interrupting. Not at all, I said. He placed several folders on the dining table. Mrs. Ellis asked me to be here this evening. My children exchanged nervous glances. James opened the first folder. I also brought copies of the notes from the meeting the three of you requested several months ago. The color drained from every face. You remember that meeting, he continued, the one where you asked whether your mother's estate could be distributed before her death. Emily whispered, "This isn't necessary." "Oh, I believe it is." James calmly read portions of his notes aloud. Every question, every request, every comment about the value of the house, every discussion about dividing the inheritance, no one interrupted, no one denied it. Then he unfolded Robert's final letter. "This," James said softly, "was written by your father." He began reading aloud. With every sentence, the room grew quieter. Robert wrote about sacrifice, about Christmas mornings spent assembling bicycles before sunrise, about working overtime so his children could attend college, about teaching them that love was measured by presence, not presents. Finally, James reached the last paragraph. If you're hearing these words, remember this: an inheritance is not a reward for being someone's child. It is a gift born from gratitude, love, and trust. The day you begin expecting it instead of earning it is the day you've already lost something far more valuable. No one moved. No one spoke. Tears rolled down Sarah's face. Emily covered her mouth. Michael stared at the floor. For months, they had been preparing to receive an inheritance. They never imagined they would first have to face the truth about the people they had become. And standing before them, I realized this wasn't the end of our family's story. It was the beginning of the most important conversation we had ever needed to have. The room remained silent long after Robert's letter had been read. No one looked at anyone else. The only sound was the ticking of the old grandfather clock that had stood in our living room since the day Robert and I bought our first home together. Finally, Emily stood up. Her voice trembled. "Mom, we're so sorry." For years I had imagined hearing those words. I thought they would erase the pain. They didn't. An apology could not give me back the Christmas morning I spent alone. It couldn't erase the months of loneliness, or the feeling of waiting by the window for children who never came. Michael stepped forward next. I let my business become more important than my family. Sarah wiped tears from her face. I kept telling myself I'd visit next month, then next month became next year. I listened without interrupting. When they finished, I walked over to the Christmas tree that was still standing in the corner of the room. Beneath it sat 3 beautifully wrapped gifts. "I bought these for you last Christmas," I said quietly. No one came to open them. Emily covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. Michael couldn't even look at me. Sarah began crying uncontrollably. "I left them wrapped," I continued, "because I kept hoping there would be another chance." I handed each of them their gift. "Open them." Inside Emily's box was the photo album she had always wanted, filled with pictures from every stage of her childhood. Michael opened his package to find Robert's treasured toolbox, carefully restored, along with a handwritten note explaining that his father had dreamed of passing it down to him one day. Sarah unfolded a handmade quilt I had spent nearly a year sewing, with every family birthday embroidered into the fabric. None of the gifts were expensive, but every one of them carried a lifetime of love. The room filled with tears. Then I reached for one final envelope. "This," I said, "is my new will." The 3 of them looked at one another. "I have changed it." No one spoke. "I've established scholarships in your father's name. I've donated a significant portion of our estate to nursing homes and organizations that care for elderly people who spend holidays alone. And the rest," I paused, "will remain in a family trust." Michael looked confused. "What does that mean?" "It means none of you will receive anything simply because you're my children." Emily slowly raised her eyes. "Then how?" "You'll receive it only if you remain a family." They stared at me. "The trust requires something very simple. You must spend time together. You must visit. You must care for one another. You must never allow another Christmas to pass with someone in this family sitting alone. If you fail, I gently closed the folder. The money goes to charity. There was no anger in my voice, only peace. James Porter smiled. Your husband helped design these conditions years ago, Emily whispered. Dad knew, he hoped he'd never need them. The room became quiet again. Michael walked toward me with tears in his eyes. I'm ashamed of who I've become. I reached out and held his hand. I don't need perfect children. I only need honest ones. Sarah hugged me tightly. I promise you'll never spend another Christmas alone. I smiled through my tears. I don't want promises. I want presents. The months that followed weren't perfect. Healing never happens overnight. There were difficult conversations, uncomfortable silences, and moments when old habits tried to return. But something had changed. The weekly Sunday dinners came back. The grandchildren filled the backyard with laughter again. Emily called just to ask how my day had been. Michael stopped by after work without needing a reason. Sarah made sure every holiday was planned months in advance. 1 year later, on Christmas morning, my house was full again. The table was surrounded by laughter instead of silence. The fireplace glowed. The grandchildren ran through the living room. For a moment, I looked toward Robert's photograph above the mantel. I smiled, not because my children had inherited my money, but because they had finally rediscovered what they had almost lost. Family isn't held together by an inheritance. It's held together by love, time, forgiveness, and the choice to show up while there's still someone waiting at the door. That became the greatest gift our family would ever receive. As I sit by the fireplace, now, another Christmas has come and gone. The tree still sparkles in the corner of the room, the scent of fresh pine fills the house, and the laughter of my grandchildren still echoes through these walls, long after everyone has gone home. The silence that once haunted this house has been replaced with something far more beautiful: gratitude. A year ago, I believed I had lost my family. Today, I understand that I almost lost something even greater: hope. For months, I allowed myself to believe that I had somehow failed as a mother. I wondered if I should have called more often, forgiven more quickly, or expected less from the people I loved most. Those thoughts kept me awake at night, convincing me that loneliness was simply the price of growing old. But I was wrong. Growing older should never mean becoming invisible. Every parent deserves more than a birthday card sent out of obligation. Every grandparent deserves more than a holiday phone call squeezed between other plans. Every person who spent years sacrificing for their family deserves to know that they are still loved while they are here to feel it. Love isn't measured by expensive gifts. It isn't measured by the size of an inheritance. It isn't measured by the value of a home or the balance of a bank account. Love is measured by time, by showing up, by choosing the people who once chose you. My children eventually understood that lesson, not because I lectured them, not because I punished them, but because they finally saw what their absence had done. They saw the untouched Christmas dinner. They saw the gifts that waited an entire year to be opened. They saw the empty chair where their father once sat. And for the first time, they imagined what it must have felt like for me to face that chair alone. That realization changed them far more than losing any inheritance ever could. People often ask whether I regret changing my will. The answer surprises them. I don't regret changing the paperwork. I regret that it took so much pain for my family to rediscover what truly mattered. Money has an incredible way of revealing what's already hidden inside the human heart. For some people, it brings generosity. For others, it exposes greed. But character is always revealed when love and wealth stand on opposite sides of the same decision. My husband understood that long before I did. Robert always believed that the greatest inheritance parents leave behind isn't financial. It's emotional. It's the values we teach around the dinner table. It's the example we set when life becomes difficult. It's the kindness our children remember long after our voices have faded into memory. That's the inheritance I want my grandchildren to receive. Not just a house, not just savings, not just possessions. I want them to inherit compassion, integrity, gratitude, the courage to place people before possessions, the wisdom to understand that success means very little if you have no one to celebrate it with. Since that unforgettable Christmas, our family has started new traditions. Every Sunday afternoon, everyone gathers at my house. Phones stay in pockets, televisions remain off. We cook together. We laugh together. Sometimes we cry together. The grandchildren now know the stories their grandfather used to tell. They help bake cookies using recipes that have been in our family for generations. They ask questions about the old photographs hanging on the walls. In those moments, I see something beautiful happening. Our family's true inheritance isn't being divided, it's being passed on. One memory at a time, one conversation at a time, one act of love at a time. Life has taught me that forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it simply refuses to let the past steal the future. I chose to forgive my children because carrying bitterness would only have made another empty chair in this house. Forgiveness didn't excuse their choices. It freed my heart from being controlled by them. If you're listening to my story today, perhaps there's someone you've been meaning to call. Maybe it's your mother, maybe it's your father, maybe it's a grandparent, a sibling, or an old friend who quietly waits for your message every holiday. Don't assume there will always be another Christmas. Don't assume there will always be more time. The greatest regrets in life rarely come from the opportunities we missed. They come from the people we neglected while chasing things that ultimately didn't matter. One day, the presents will be unwrapped. The decorations will be packed away. The lights will come down. The holiday songs will grow quiet. But the way you made someone feel will remain in their heart forever. So choose kindness. Choose forgiveness. Choose gratitude. Choose to show up. Because the most precious gift you'll ever give isn't found in a shopping bag or wrapped beneath a Christmas tree. It's your presence. It's your attention. It's your willingness to make someone feel loved before it's too late. And when your own story is finally told, people won't remember the size of your home or the value of your estate. They'll remember the warmth of your heart, the strength of your character, and the love you shared without expecting anything in return. That is the only inheritance that grows more valuable with every generation. And that is the greatest Christmas gift anyone can ever leave behind.